Ian's my friend, he's very spiritual, whatever, or hippie, might believe. But I think there's a potential for intervention of some sort to save you from the circumstances that,
I think it was a great example of good journalism, which doesn't really exist anymore, and I wish it did.
Yeah. And the question, I suppose, is how do we find more people who are in a similar situation, and then give them the level of media attention that saves them?
I don't think you could ever get access like they had
No.
back then.
I mean, in our case, it was a perfect storm.
Yeah.
Not only did you have the satanic panic stuff going on, which people were just really like riveted to, wanting to know more. They wanted they didn't tune in to my situation to see an innocent guy going through a trial. They tuned into my situation because they wanted gory details.
Wow.
That, they were basically, the public wanted to like rubberneck. And then it was because of that rubbernecking that they realized, oh, this isn't what it was portrayed to be. So it was just a perfect storm. I don't know how you would orchestrate that,
And
honestly.
it was wild. I mean, like Byers giving the knife to the HBO production crew with the blood on it that he had supposedly never used. Like, just all of the things.
Wow.
It was just so, like, captivating. I mean, I know it's your life, so it's weird. It's weird for me to even say that. But the way that they did it, you couldn't look away from it, and I think that probably saved your life.
They made a movie
And
about it,
I
didn't
think
they?
it's really cool that
Yeah.
they did that.
Yeah.
Was it who was in it? Reese Witherspoon or something?
Yeah, the Devil's Knot. Yeah. But
Was-
it's one of those things, like going back for just a second to what you said about like religion or whatever, and going back to what Cassandra was just saying about, like it's my life or whatever. I think a lot of people, whenever they think of me, they think I am almost synonymous with this case. Like this case is me. This case is like the apex or the focal point or the crux or whatever it is of my life situation. It was what formed me or whatever. And honestly, for me, it's not like that at all. For me, this case was almost, this is something that I will never be able to make people out here understand, but it was almost in a very real way insignificant to my development. This will sound crazy because so many people have played such a huge role in the development of who I am and how I view the world and everybody else. But like when you're talking about like spirituality, like the reason I'm hesitant to say is because it's another one of those things that most people have like preconceived ideas about or anything else. But the practice that allowed me to survive when I was in there and that shapes the way that I understand divinity and all of this stuff is ceremonial magic, Western Hermeticism. And I always say that the two biggest people that I don't know in real life that played a huge role in shaping who I am would be Aleister Crowley and Joel Osteen.
Wow.
I credit Joel Osteen. It's like ceremonial magic is one of the things that saved my life, but so is listening to the messages of Joel Osteen. I went from one day when I was in there feeling like I can't do this. I can't get up another day. They're going to come in the cell and find me dead tomorrow. And it's a Sunday. You only get three TV channels in prison. I turn on all three of them, and they're all three televangelists. So I figure I may as well just watch one. So I just randomly left it on the one that Joel Osteen was on. Within 30 minutes, I went from feeling like I can't get up anymore to feeling like getting up and turning cartwheels.
Wow.
So I forgot where I was going with this. I did have a point.
Have you ever reached out to him or?
Like magic and
I haven't reached out to him, but one time, I live in New Orleans, so you have hurricanes there all the time, and you have to flee like crazy. And one of the times when we were running from a hurricane, we evacuated to Houston, and we thought, while we're here, why not go to his church? So we went there, and for me, it was one of those incredibly surreal moments, seeing this guy that on a TV screen saved my life when I was in prison. Oh, that was my point. So the point of what I was getting to was, like, one of the reasons that I say that this isn't like the culmination of who I am, like I'm not synonymous with the case, is because when I was in prison, one of the things Joel Osteen says that I took away from his stuff is he says, whatever you're going through, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And when I look back in hindsight now, I see that everything I went through, don't get me wrong, it wasn't pleasant, it wasn't easy, I wouldn't choose to do it, but I see how it made me the person that I am now. And one of the things that it did was provided me with a kind of life that I didn't have to think about getting up every day and going to a 9-to-5 job. I was locked in a cell for a decade in solitary confinement, where the only thing that I had to focus on was my spiritual practice. Not belief, not faith, not hope, but an actual practice. That forced me to build a world to focus on other than those prison walls. Like, I reached a point, if you're familiar with Timothy Leary, when he was doing all the LSD experiments, at one time he ends up in prison, and Ram Dass goes to visit him, and Ram Dass tells him, we've come up with a plan to break you out of here. And Timothy Leary says, you can't do that. I've got too much work to do. That's how I had almost started to feel in prison by the very end. I had been so 100% dedicated and focused on these practices and like the way they were changing me and my experiences, that I no longer thought about the fact that I was even in prison anymore.
That Joel Osteen statement, that's a good one. It's happening for you.
Yes.
And I think, my life was shaped by a lot of very difficult circumstances, nowhere near as difficult as yours. But all of the bad things that I went through and all the hardships made me stronger and more capable and able to do the work that I do. So that's a good one. I wouldn't call it perfect. Some people go through things and the end result is just bad in the long run.
I agree.
But I think it's about your state of mind. And for you, it sounds like you're in this hell, but he was able to say something so simple to you that made you try and focus on what you could build from it, or what you could do to have a better state of mind. That's powerful stuff. That's
or even just distract you from the misery. Like most of the men that were there when I was on death row, I think there were give or take 30 people on death row total. And I would say almost every single one of those people was in a living hell. And I wasn't. So that, to me, that's kind of the testimony of what's possible with, the right mindset and being focused on what you're doing. Knowing what you came into this world to do and applying yourself to it will get you through so much hardship that it's insane, because you don't focus on the hardship. You focus on what it is that you're passionate about, what it is that you're doing.
did you ever feel like you were being punished for something divinely? I mean, you mentioned you felt like it was divine intervention to get out, but I wonder if...
I don't think I ever felt like I was being punished, but I did. It was hard to get away from the feeling sometimes that this is happening for a reason, that this isn't just... And maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just me feeling that way or whatever it was, but oftentimes I did have the feeling like, this is for a reason, that... maybe this isn't correct. Like you said, people go through horrible things all the time. A lot of times people are destroyed by it, but I always had the feeling that, whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, the source that everything came from and to which everything will one day return, whatever it is, I always had this feeling that it wouldn't be allowing this to happen unless it were for a reason of some sort. And that got me through a lot too.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine the reason for some things. But I wouldn't. I think people should. There are a lot of people who say that things happen for a reason, but then you also have to consider that sometimes the reasons may be beyond our understanding.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
What was it like for you when you got out? I mean, you and Lori got married while you were in prison. Did you guys move in together right away? What was it like coming into a world with the internet and smartphones?
It was absolutely devastating. People think that getting out of prison, getting off death row, that's like the finish line, and you hit that and you live happily ever after. And we had not given one single second of thought to what comes after this. Like, the entirety of everything we're doing, we're focused on the finish line of getting me off of death row. So when that happens, you realize it's not like the credits roll. It's not like this is the end of the story. When I walked off of death row, I did not have a single penny to my name. I had nowhere to go. I didn't have so much as a suit of clothes to change into. So we had to hit the ground running. I am in a state of shock and trauma. I go from not only 20 years in prison, almost 10 of those being in solitary confinement, to literally overnight being on the streets of Manhattan. It completely and absolutely destroyed me. I had a severe nervous breakdown. When people are thinking I'm supposed to be celebrating and happy, I am breaking down and thinking life out here is harder than life in prison was. It destroyed me to the point that I have almost no memory of the first 2 years that I was out of prison. If you add up everything that I could remember all together, it would equal a few hours. I would, you know, a lot of it was like the brain trauma, stuff like that, but I would reintroduce myself to the same person over and over and over again. You know, people that I had dinner with the night before, I would reintroduce myself to them the next day, not even being able to remember that.
How are you doing now?
Getting better. You know, I think I've come a long, long way in the past. I've been out 11 years now. And, you know, a lot of it, I don't think there's anything that's going to completely, you know, fix everything automatically, but a lot better. You know, all in all, and once again, it's like that thing, you know, about it didn't happen to me, it happened for me. It's like, yeah, I could look at that, like, you know, even the memory issues and the nervous breakdowns and all that as, you know, something horrific, but it led me to where I am now, which is a relatively happy person. I think I'm probably happier than, you know, honestly, this might sound weird or whatever, but I'm probably happier than 90% of the people that I come in contact with.
You know, I often say there's a lot of people who are born into this world with a silver spoon. Everything's very, very good. They have access to the best food. They have a car whenever they need it. And then when they become adults and now they're on their own, they lose all that and it feels painful. But if you come from the bottom and then later on in life, you got a $600 car that can drive a little bit and you're getting a cheeseburger every day, you're like, wow, this is great.
Exactly.
I can't believe how good life is. I never thought I'd be here.
Exactly.
So here's the very, very cliche thing. Like, what was the first thing you ate after you got off death row, got out?
Everything. No, really, we went to, we wanted to get out of Arkansas as soon as possible. So the minute that I got out of prison, my very first stop, I had to go to the DMV. Straight from prison to the DMV to get an ID to even be able to fly. We stayed that night in a hotel. We went out of Arkansas across the state line over into Memphis. And of course, everybody who had supported us for years, you know, like a lot of people like Eddie Vedder were there at this hotel, did like a rooftop party. One of the things he did before I got to the hotel was called room service and had them bring everything on the menu to the room so that whenever I got there, everything that the hotel served was in the room.
I mean, so what was that like? I have to imagine the food wasn't too good in prison.
Keep in mind, I was incredibly nauseous. You know, that was one of the things about the brain trauma is like for the first at least year that I was out, I was sick all the time. Like you're nauseous, you have vertigo, stuff like that. So it wasn't like I was starving. It's like, you know, I ate a little bit of everything, but it was almost like just a robotic action. It's not like you're actually enjoying it or anything because you're being shattered. You know, you're going through trauma.
There's I think it's The Green Mile. Man, I'm just all about movies. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Mm-hmm. Many times.
That's the one where when the guy finally gets out, he hangs himself.
Yes.
Believe, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's that. I mean, it's a movie, I know, but people need to understand, and you can probably speak to this way better than I could as someone who just sees it in movies. You build your entire body. You know, if you were in for 18 years, every 7 years, every cell in your body has been replaced. So you're a new person. That means everything that makes up who you are, your worldview, your consumption of information and food, the people you interact with, is incarceration. Mm-hmm. And then you come out into this world. Not only it's being somewhere entirely different, where everything's different, the technology is different. I remember hearing one guy told me how he went to jail, I think. Or there's a post online. This was a post online actually. A guy goes to prison in the mid 2000s, only for a few years for some, you know, low level felony. When he gets out, everyone's got cell phones connected to the internet, and because that jump happened from like 2007 2008, all of a sudden everybody had smartphones, touchscreens that can go online. So he goes from this world where there's no internet. When he gets out, everyone's got access to everything, and it tripped him up.
Same for me.
Yeah.
I went in 1993. I came out in 2011. That was one of the things like that I could not understand about the world. I used to have panic attacks for things like using a debit card. You know, how when you go to the grocery store, the thing everybody takes for granted now, you put your card in the little machine, put your number in, and that pays for groceries. To me, that was like alien spaceship level technology. I didn't know how to use that, didn't understand. Like, I can remember going to the bank one time to try to deposit a check. And when I get up to the window, I wait in line. When it's finally my turn, I get up to the window and I have a panic attack and turn around and had to leave without doing it, just because all this stuff was completely and absolute. I had never used an ATM machine. I had never used a cell phone. I had never seen the internet. I had seen on TV like the development of things like computers, but like when I went in prison, a computer was a glorified typewriter for rich people. Like, you would put something into it and it would take 30 minutes for that printer to, gradually print something
the
out.
old dot matrix printers.
That's all I knew about computers.
I feel like they don't, that's got to be a key component of prison reform right there, is people need to be able to, when they leave, re-enter society easily. Otherwise, I feel like that's probably a component of recidivism.
Yes.
When you get out, you're like, I don't know what to do. So
Yes.
what do? You take